Hello and a warm welcome to the news on NTAi International. My name is Obiageli Ugoke and Franklin Efe is our sign language interpreter for today. Let's take the headlines. Robert Kennedy Jr. joins presidential race in America. Iran and Saudi Arabia renew diplomatic ties, thereby evolving a new world order. International Fund for Agricultural Development extends Nigeria's Strategic Opportunities Program being jointly funded with federal governments. Thank you very much for joining us. We begin with U.S. politics. Democrats Robert Kennedy Jr., a leading voice in the anti-vax movement and one of America's most powerful political families, has filed to run for U.S. president in a challenge to Joe Biden. Justin Bermoni reports.
Robert F. Kennedy Jr., 69, filed a statement of candidacy on Wednesday with the Federal Election Commission, which would likely pit him against incumbent President Biden, who is expected to declare his own run for 2024. The former attorney becomes the second candidate to throw their hat in the ring for the Democratic nomination after self-help author Marianne Williamson declared the run. Mr. Kennedy's chance at ending up in the White House is a long shot. Mr. Biden, 80, the oldest president in U.S. history, still has considerable support among Democratic voters. Mr. Kennedy is the son of former New York Senator, U.S. Attorney General, and assassinated 1968 presidential candidate Robert F. Kennedy, and the nephew of the late President John F. Kennedy. He was once a best-selling author, an environmental lawyer, and had been long involved in the anti-vaccine movement, but the effort intensified during the COVID pandemic. Since 2005, he has promoted the scientifically discredited link between vaccines and autism, and is founder and chairman of Children's Health Defense, an anti-vaccine propaganda group. Justin Bermoni, NTA News.
Into China Trilateral talks, President Xi Jinping has held a tripartite meeting of China, France, and the European Union (EU) with French President Emmanuel Macron and European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen at the Great Hall of the People. President Xi pointed out that China and the EU share extensive common interests. Herman Jabane reports on the meeting and other engagements of the European Union in China.
This year marks the 20th anniversary of the establishment of China-EU Comprehensive Strategic Partnership. China is prepared to work with the EU to set the right direction and tune for China-EU ties, fully resume exchanges of all levels, and revitalize mutually beneficial cooperation in various fields, thus injecting fresh impetus into China-EU relations and global peace, stability, and prosperity. President Xi Jinping underlined that China champions true multilateralism and a global governance vision featuring extensive consultation, joint contribution, and shared benefit, and it is prepared to work with the EU to enhance coordination and cooperation in multilateral affairs, while upholding the international system centered on the United Nations, the international order underpinning the international law, and the basic norms of international relations based on the purposes and principles of the UN Charter.
It is essential to maintain an open and mutually trusting cooperation environment. China and the EU need to maintain two-way opening up.
President von der Leyen noted that EU and China are each other's important trading partner, and the two economies are highly intertwined. It would like to restart the high-level economic and trade dialogue and advance steadily and balanced growth and economic ties with China for mutual benefit.
The European Union and China today have extensive and complex relations. How we manage these relations will be a determining factor for our future economic prosperity.
President Macron noted that in a world full of uncertainties, the EU and China need to enhance dialogue and exchange with mutual respect, openness and humility. The two sides should work with each other to stay away from the trap of economic decoupling and several supply chains, carried out mutual beneficial cooperation on an equal footing, tackle pressing global challenges such as climate change, and to keep deepening the EU-China Comprehensive Strategic Partnership.
European Union, the EU, is willing to restart the EU-China high-level economic and trade dialogue with China to promote the stable and balanced development.
On vient faire du commerce et on veut développer les choses, mais en ayant d'abord des déterminants pro-européens.
The three leaders exchanged views on the Ukraine crisis, and they are prepared to work to find a way to facilitate talks for peace. Earlier, Chinese President Xi Jinping and visiting French President Emmanuel Macron held talks on bilateral relations and other issues of common interest, and later had discussion with the European Commission President on key issues in European Union-China relations. Hamman Jabani, NTAi News.
And Saudi Arabia and Iran are resuming diplomatic ties after a meeting between their foreign ministers in Beijing. It was the first formal gathering of top Saudi Arabian and Iranian diplomats in more than 7 years. Adebola Brooks and Sunday now reports.
The meeting between Saudi Foreign Minister Prince Faisal bin Farhan Al Saud and Iranian Foreign Minister Hussein Amir Abdullahian follows a landmark agreement between the two sides to re-establish diplomatic relations on March 10 under the mediation of China. Both diplomats discussed reopening of embassies, the appointment of ambassadors, and a planned visit to Saudi Arabia by Iran's President Ibrahim Raisi. They also discussed resuming flights between the two countries and issuing travel visas to each other's citizens. The regional rivals cut ties in 2016 after thousands of demonstrators stormed the Saudi embassy in Tehran, protesting the execution of the prominent Shia Muslim cleric Sheikh Nimr al-Nimr in Saudi Arabia. The deal was seen as a diplomatic coup for Xi Jinping, China's leader, as he tries to position himself as a global statesman and peacemaker, particularly with regards to the conflicts in Ukraine. An Iranian diplomat, Reza Zabib, said he is optimistic about the future Tehran-Riyadh relations.
This is actually a reflection of a comprehensive strategic relation between Iran and China, based on which Iranian Minister of Foreign Affairs frequently visits China. This is one of those.
She has proposed hosting a summit for Gulf Arab leaders and Iranian officials later this year. Adebola Brooks Sunday, NTAi News.
To speak more on the renewed diplomatic ties between Iran and Saudi Arabia, I have with me a former Nigerian High Commissioner to Pakistan, Ambassador Dauda Danladi. Ambassador, you're welcome to NTAi International.
Thank you very much.
How would you describe the strained diplomatic ties between Iran and Saudi Arabia?
I think this is great. The restoration of the relationship between the two arch rivals who had strained diplomatic relations for over 3 decades. I think it is a great move. It is a move that demonstrates China's growing influence in the Middle East. As if you may recall, the strained relationship between Saudi Arabia and Iran based on geopolitical issues such as the quest for leadership in the region, the war in Yemen, in Lebanon, in Syria. Both countries have been promoting proxy wars in these countries. I think this is a very good strategic diplomatic move that China has been able to bring the two warring factions to come to the table. It means there will be a escalation of tension in the Middle East.
The relationship has thrived for over 3 decades. With the renewed diplomatic relations, what would be the gains of the new world order to the two countries and the world?
I think for peace, sustainable peace is a continuum for development. And if you visualize what has been happening in the Middle East, where millions of people have lost their lives, millions of people have been displaced in the Middle East, and of course, by extension, the tension between the Israel and the Palestinian, which is an old tension, to a large extent, we will begin to see the integration of the Arab countries. For example, already Iran has posted an ambassador to UAE. Of course, Turkey is on the table. And from what I can say a kind of a reintegration, a new fraternal understanding that is emerging among the Arab nations. And if they speak with one voice, then of course we will begin to see a peaceful, sustainable development, not only in the Middle East, but by extension in Africa. Now, let me just say this, that China, as if you recall, some few months back was able to put in place the BRICS countries. That is Brazil, China, India, Iran. And of course, South Africa has just joined. You see, with a combined GDP of about, nominal GDP of about over $30 trillion, with a population of about 3.2 billion people, they will provide the necessary impetus, the necessary checks and balances, especially the strength of the dollar. If they can be able to have currency swap where the transactions will be done in yuan, of course it will impact positively on Africa.
All right, Ambassador, in terms of the friendly nature of the countries, what are your hopes and aspirations?
My hopes and aspirations would be that there will be a de-escalation of tension completely in Syria, that Lebanon will be peaceful, and of course, Iraq, the political gagma in Iraq will be resolved. We hope and aspire that there will be a peaceful understanding among the Arab nations that will impact positively on the world going forward, that will checkmate and balance the international financial system.
Thank you very much, Ambassador, for coming. You're welcome once more to NTAi International. We appreciate your thoughts.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
That was Ambassador Dauda Danladi, the former High Commissioner to Nigerian High Commissioner to Pakistan. Away from that, the International Fund for Agricultural Development has agreed to extend Nigeria's Strategic Opportunities Program, jointly being funded with the federal government. The program is designed to upscale agricultural output of rural farmers and at the same time improve their social and economic well-being. Musa Baba Aliyu has more.
The country's Strategic Opportunities Program is an initiative of the International Fund for Agricultural Development, IFAD, designed to increase income and empowerment opportunities for rural farmers who are building resilience to climate change and food insecurity. The program, which took off in 2016, is to end in December this year.
The concept is expected to deliver sustainable agriculture, creating decent jobs, boost rural economy of the vulnerable households for better access to food, improve livelihood, as well as harness the potentials targeted for sustainable development. IFAD
committed $467 million to the program, while the federal government and other partners contributed $530 million. The program is to be extended considering the success recorded so far in the initiative, which has been extended for another 5 years.
So we are going to use the consultation, the background studies that have been done to design the new strategy. And we will need the feedback of various stakeholders on this design. Of course, in this process, the government is key because we must align with the national policies, and also coordinate with the government.
This therefore brought about this technical workshop to review the results of the implementation of the IFAD's Country Strategic Opportunities Program and as well discuss the way forward.
Which produce 78 recommendations that can transform food system.
For us in FAO, we are very much interested in the issues of food systems in the country, largely because of their importance for production, productivity, for value chain development, for youth engagement, for women involvement. So we believe that this process will be fruitful as well.
The French Development Agency is a very strong partner to IFAD. We used to collaborate with them in the field of agri-development, looking at climate change adaptation, women empowerment, making sure we liaise farmers with marketing and processors. That's basically the reason why we want to be involved in this endeavor.
Other development partners pledged to join hands with IFAD and the Federal Ministry of Agriculture to ensure that Nigeria is active in the United Nations Food System Program. Musa Baba Aliyu, NTAi News.
You're watching the news on NTAi International. More stories when we return. Just stay. Thanks for staying tuned. The African Development Bank has set aside a $525,000 grant for the establishment of an African Fintech Hub, which is an online portal that will provide a one-stop shop for all fintech activities for the continent. This comes as the bank signs the grant agreement with the Africa Fintech Network for the project. Justin Bemuni reports.
With the pens inking the papers, the journey for the Africa Fintech Hub project has begun. This activates a grant support for the project to be executed by the Africa Fintech Network, AFN. The Africa Development Bank, AFDB, is doling out $525,000 here to support the operationalization of the online digital hub, to serve as a repository of knowledge for fintech entities across the continent and globally. The digital hub, which is to be delivered through a strategic partnership between the Africa Fintech Network and Center for Financial Regulation and Inclusion, CENFRI, is said to help strengthen the fintech ecosystem across Africa and boost the industry's competitiveness.
Because in an increasingly digitalized world, businesses are being held mainly using these platforms. So the more digitalized we are, the more efficient we are, the more competitive we are, the more we have access to markets, both for products and also inputs. So also the efficiency in terms of payment system. So all in all, it will help to drive a more inclusive and competitive societies.
The grant is funded by the Africa Digital Financial Inclusion Facility, ADFI, launched by AFDB, together with its partners. This pact signing is a milestone in efforts to promote digital innovation and financial inclusion in African countries.
So this platform that is funded by the ADFI through the AFDB will give us that latitude, that platform, that power to be able to unleash the potentials that we have in various African countries. Every African country have talents that can be, explored towards doing great things, so that we are not limited only to those big countries that are known. This will give us a lot of resources to be able to reach out to all the African countries, and we can bring the best out of them and expose them to the world. And the transformation thing they will be doing will help a lot in developing the African economy, the economy of the different countries.
Fintechs provide powerful, readily available and effective digital financial solutions to help bridge the financial inclusion gap. In Abuja, Justin Bemuni, NTAi News.
And from the Vatican comes the report that the need for priests not to be frightened by labors and weaknesses and to discover within themselves their own Easter was the focus of Pope Francis' homily at the Christian Mass to mark Holy Thursday at the Vatican. Over to Adebola Brooks and Sunday for the details.
Pope Francis led the first of the two major Holy Thursday ceremonies. His voice sounded strong during the Basilica Mass as he read a long homily during the service, which was dedicated to the theme of the priesthood. Pope Francis used the homily as a pep talk to priests after decades of scandals involving sex abuse of children by clergy, which caused many faithful to lose trust in their pastors. The pontiff thanked priests for the good they do, which he said so often goes unrecognized, and he encouraged them to invoke the Holy Spirit as the breath of each day, which even in times of crisis gives them joy and points them in the right direction towards Christ.
We need to say every day, "Come, for without your strength, we are lost." The Spirit of the Lord is upon me. Every one of us can say this, not out of presumption, but as a reality. For all Christians, and priests in particular, can apply to themselves the words that follow. Because the Lord has anointed me.
The Basilica ceremony traditionally includes the blessing of ointment and priests' renewal of promise made when they were ordained to the priesthood. Francis, who is 86, was discharged 5 days ago from a Rome hospital where he received antibiotics administered intravenously. Adebola, Brooklyn Sunday, NTAi News.
Away from that, two outgoing ambassadors who completed their tour of duty in Nigeria were hosted in farewell audiences by President Muhammadu Buhari. The envoys from Angola and the United Arab Emirates described as gladdening that Nigeria made a good impression on them. State House correspondent Adam Basambo reports.
Receiving the outgoing ambassador of the United Arab Emirates, Dr. Fahad Obaid Al-Tafaq, President Muhammadu Buhari said Nigeria and the UAE have so much in common. The two countries, he believes, will continue to improve on their relationship, describing it as highly beneficial. The envoy, Dr. Tafaq, assured the president that the two countries will work on the details of their bilateral engagements for the benefit of their people and economies. He said having traveled extensively in Nigeria in his 5-year stay and understood the diversity and culture of the people, he made a lot of friends in government, the private sector, and the civil society. As he put it, "I am living with beautiful memories and will continue to be close to Nigeria in different capacities." On his part, the outgoing Angolan envoy, Estaquio Januario Cubato, thanked the president for the wise leadership he has been giving to Nigeria, being the champion of anti-corruption in Africa and degrading the Boko Haram insurgency group. The outgoing ambassador also lauded President Buhari for repositioning the Nigerian economy to be less import-dependent. Recalling the role Nigeria played in the liberation of Angola, President Buhari said the country uses its size and resources to help sister African nations as much as possible. He said despite the rush of military coups in some parts of Africa, democracy is still the best option. From the State House, Adam Musambu, NTAi News.
In the meantime, Information and Cultural Minister Lai Mohammed continued his engagement in the United States with a call on Western countries to support Nigeria in deepening its democracy as a giant of Africa. The minister solicited for this support during his engagement at Hudson Institute in Washington, D.C., United States. Anthony Forson now reports.
Founded in 1961, Hudson Institute seeks to guide policymakers and global leaders in government and business through a robust program on most pressing issues, particularly on foreign policy, national security, and international relations. The Information and Culture Minister, while making the case for the support that will deepen democracy in Nigeria, said it is heartwarming that the 2023 general elections in Nigeria is the most credible, free, and fair since the return of democracy in 1999. This feat the minister attributed to the introduction of technology into the process, which assisted in scaling down violence.
Under diverse voters were required to scan their faces, all their thumbprints, the same as contained in their permanent voters' cards, to cast the ballot. Through this system, only real voters could vote. This system eliminated fraudulent votes, ghost votes, and multiple votes. This landmark technology, which worked 97% of the time, has been overlooked for other flaws, but actually represents a revolution in the way elections are conducted in my country.
He equally attributed the success recorded by INEC to President Muhammadu Buhari, who has consistently assured that he will ensure a credible election as his legacy when leaving office.
President Muhammadu Buhari created a genuine level playing field and did not bestow or confer any advantage on the incumbent ruling party.
Lai Mohammed also visited the Atlantic Council, a think tank organization, and later had a Zoom meeting with the Wilson Center, and summed up by describing as uncalled for calls by the opposition for the cancellation of the election, which has been won and lost. In Washington, D.C., Anthony Forson, NTA News.
And that does it on the news on NTAi International. My name is Tobiageli Ugwoke, and Franklin Efe has been our sign language interpreter for today. Thank you very much for staying tuned.